the Supreme Court has stepped in amid the rising concerns over extreme pressure faced by booth-level officers, BLOs, during the special intensive revision of voter rolls in West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and other states. Reports of officers working long hours under intense strain, with some cases even tragically ending in suicides, have prompted the apex court to issue a series of strong directives. Now, the Supreme Court made it clear that the onus lies squarely with the state government and not the Election Commission. States and union territories have now been asked to deploy additional staff, reduce working hours, and even consider humanitarian exemptions for officers who are struggling already under the workload. Let's break down the details. Let's talk about what the Supreme Court said. These are the details that have come to fore the Supreme Court's observation. ECI, the Election Commission of India, that was blamed by the state governments, has been absolved of the deaths, the suicides committed by the BLOs. This is what the Supreme Court said. State governments must give adequate workforce. So it's the responsibility of the states. States obligated to ease workload on staff. The Supreme Court also said working hours to be proportionately reduced. All of this has to be done by the state machinery. Replace BLOs who are unwilling to take up the exercise. That also has to be ensured by the state. State must consider BLO exemption requests. So if there are some requests coming in from the BLOs because of work pressure, workload or other reasons, the state must consider that. So this is a massive setback for the Vipaksh, the opposition, remember, that held the Election Commission of India responsible and said it is because of the SIR exercise that is being carried out by the ECI that is forcing the BLOs to claim their lives. This is what the opposition said versus the observation that came in from the court. Opposition said deaths of BLOs from unnecessary pressure which is being put on them. Court said responsibility of states and replace those who are unwilling to work, take their requests into consideration. Opposition said not reform. SIR is an imposed tyranny. Supreme Court said Supreme Court refused to fault ECI for BLO deaths and put the responsibility in the state government's court. Mamata Banerjee's party, the TMC, said SIR exercise structurally unsound. Supreme Court said SIR is a lawful exercise. So this is how the Supreme Court in a way came down heavily on the state governments and gave a clean chit to the ECI. Once again, TMC said forced upon electoral officials and citizens. Supreme Court said states obligated to give adequate staff to reduce the workload. It's the job, the responsibility of the state governments. Let's listen into the reactions that we are getting.
मुझे सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जो रिमार्क के बारे में जानकारी नहीं है, लेकिन ऐसा होगा तो दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण होगा। कुछ लोग तो लिख कर भी गए हैं और जब आप कहते हैं कि वर्क प्रेशर की वजह से डेथ हुई है, तो वर्क प्रेशर किसने दिया, टाइम लिमिट किसने सेट किया, ओवरलोडिंग किसने किया, वो निश्चित रूप से जिम्मेदार है। अगर ऐसा कुछ आया तो दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जजमेंट नहीं करूंगा, लेकिन मुझे लगता है लोगों की भावनाओं के साथ नहीं है।
एकदम जिम्मेवार है। 20 से 25 लोग जो BLO मर गए, सुसाइड नोट लिख करके मर गए, उसका कौन जिम्मेदार होगा? होंगे कि नहीं होंगे? इस पर क्यों नहीं इलेक्शन कमीशन आखिर क्यों नहीं जिम्मेदारी ले रहा है? तो इन सारी चीजों को हम लोग हमेशा उठाए हैं, आज भी उठाए, उठाते रहेंगे।
Now, the BJP has taken a jibe at the anti-SIR lobby, calling it a setback for critics of the SIR. Party leaders said Apex Court made the right observation, that it is the responsibility of the state governments to provide adequate manpower for the exercise. BJP emphasized that insufficient staff and overburdened booth-level officers are the fault of the state and not the Election Commission. And the Supreme Court's directions on deploying additional personnel and reducing work hours underline this point clearly. Listen in.
It's a great setback for the anti-SIR lobby, especially Mamata Banerjee and her party, because court clearly mentioned that that they won't issue any notice to ECI, and rightly, and it is a right observation from the court, Honorable Supreme Court, that it is this election commission, they don't have any employees under them in the states. Yes. Only the election office they have, and all the BLOs are they are the officials of the state government, respective state government. Exactly. So respective state government should provide the manpower in a sufficient manner.
Let's open this up. Let's go across to our guests. We're joined by Dr. Kaushal Kant Mishra of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Advocate Niladri Bhattacharya, political analyst, Kapil Madan, advocate and political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us. Good evening to all of you. I want to go across to Advocate Niladri Bhattacharya first. Supreme Court says ECI is not to be blamed. It's the responsibility of the state governments. Provide adequate staff. Ensure that you ease the work pressure.
While respecting the Supreme Court judgment, I have to say only one thing, that humanity angle also should have been considered by the court. We all understand that the law is blind, law doesn't look into all these things. But it is a fact that BLOs have committed suicide. It is a fact that BLOs are overburdened, overworked, not only because of the ECI guidelines, but because of the shifting goalposts by the ECI and after the commencement of the SIR exercise. In Bengal, we have seen the BLOs have been protesting. In Bengal, we have seen a very novel thing. The leader of opposition, Shubhendu Adhikari, he is also going and protesting against the SIR, against the ECI. So now, when this comes through, it is a fact that there is something wrong in the system.
But if the court had not considered the human angle, the fact that BLOs are overworked or they are committing suicides, that pressure is driving them to commit suicides, why would the Supreme Court issue directions and tell the state government to take care of the work pressure and to also take care of requests of BLOs in case they do not want to take part in the exercise? Those who are unwilling, do not include them. Why would the court ask the states to look into it?
The Supreme Court in all its wisdom has passed it, but it is also a fact that the ECI has been threatening the BLOs with imprisonment, with jail term, if they do not do their job in a proper manner. So that is a place where a balance has to be struck in the interest of the society. If someone dies, it is who will take the blame? At the end of the day, even though the state government is supplying the people, but it is the ECI who has to take the blame. The ECI cannot absolve itself of its liability. And as far as Supreme Court is concerned, the hearing is not yet over. Let us see what
comes. Yes, the hearing is not yet over. Yes, it is not yet over. We're talking about the initial observations that have come in, the directions that have come in. Let me bring in Kaushal Mishra. Kaushal Mishra, Advocate Bhattacharya says, yet you cannot absolve the Election Commission of India. It's the Election Commission of India. As per him, the allegation is that they are threatening the BLOs. उन पर वो pressure बना रहे हैं और वो उनको धमका रहे हैं कि आपको जेल में डाल देंगे. ECI के पास जेल में डाल देने के, धमकाने के powers हैं.
स्वाति, अगर इलेक्शन कमीशन कुछ भी अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पावर का इस्तेमाल कर रहा है, वो भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सुपरविजन में कर रहा है, तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि उसके ऊपर किसी को डाउट करना चाहिए. और जहां तक रही वेस्ट बंगाल की बात करें, तो वेस्ट बंगाल में आज तक अभी जो कोर्ट में डेटा दिया गया है, उसके अकॉर्डिंग 99.77% का एनरोलमेंट हो चुका है. ये डेटा आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट में रखा गया है. तमिलनाडु में 95.65% का डेटा ऑलरेडी अपलोड हो चुका है, दिया जा चुका है. मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, या क्या SIR प्रक्रिया पहली बार हो रही है? पूरे देश में मेरे ख्याल से 12-13 बार ऑलरेडी हो चुकी है. लास्ट 2003 में हो चुकी है.
आप लोग डेडलाइन बहुत कम रखते हैं.
देश को ये सोचना पड़ेगा.
आप डेडलाइन बहुत कम रखते हैं और आप प्रेशर बना रहे हैं. ये एलिगेशन है. आपसे मेरा मतलब है इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया.
अच्छा, ये बताइए, अब सवाल पे आ जाते हैं कि डेडलाइन की बात करते हैं. एक BLO को मैक्सिमम 1200 फॉर्म भरने और मिनिमम 800 फॉर्म भरने हैं. अगर हम एवरेज ले लेते हैं तो 1000 फॉर्म भरने कितने दिन में? 37 डेज में. 37 डेज का मतलब है कि एक दिन में उसको मैक्सिमम 28 फॉर्म भरने हैं. मैं अभी खुद अपने कानपुर गया था और वहां पे मैंने BLO का फॉर्म देखा. 1 पेज का फॉर्म है. और अगर उसको ईमानदारी से भरा जाए तो मुझे उसको भरने में, चूंकि मेरा डेटा मेरे पास था, तो मुझे उसको भरने में 1 से 2 मिनट का टाइम लगा.
वर्क प्रेशर की बात हो रही है, ये वर्क प्रेशर कौन डाल रहा है? मेरा सवाल ये है, हमने टेस्टिमनीज देखी, हमने कुछ वीडियोस देखे, दे वर डिस्टर्बिंग इन नेचर, जिसमें कुछ BLOs रो रहे हैं, उसके बाद खबर आती है कि उनकी जान जा चुकी है. तो ये प्रेशर कौन डाल रहा है?
देखिए, मेरे पास, स्वाति जी, मेरे पास कोई सबूत नहीं है, इसलिए मैं बोलना नहीं चाहता. पर आप ये बताइए ना, यही प्रोसीजर हर बार हुआ, किसी BLO ने कोई आत्महत्या नहीं दी. इस बार ऐसा क्या हो रहा है? कौन है जो BLO पे प्रेशर डाल रहा है? क्या ऐसा तो नहीं कि लोकल नेता प्रेशर डाल रहा है? क्या ऐसा तो नहीं कि लोग ऐसे हैं जिनके नाम उसमें इंटर हुए हैं, जो गलत इंटर हुए हैं, और अगर उनको हटाने की कोशिश करा तो उसको थ्रेट किया जा रहा है? तो ये लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का इशू है.
लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का इशू है. आई वांट टू ब्रिंग इन कपिल मदान.
पढ़ किससे रहा?
लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का भी इशू है, तो अगेन इट कम्स अंडर द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. The entire opposition put the blame on the Election Commission of India, said that it's the Election Commission of India which is threatening, pressurizing, and that's why BLOs are taking their own lives. But the Supreme Court says, and the BJP says this is a massive embarrassment for the entire anti-SIR lobby, which blamed the ECI.
Swati, I think, Mr. Mishra has said a very, very, relevant, thing here on the channel. He said that, this needs to be looked into if they're committing suicide, because he says that law and order is a state subject. Let me also, remind, perhaps that was the only reason why a petition was filed before the Honorable Supreme Court, and this was highlighted that this appears to be a serious concern. Now, let's assume that if someone is trying to put pressure on the BLOs, and if the BLOs are committing suicide, is it not serious enough to register and investigate? And in fact, these BLOs work under the, direct tutelage of the Election Commission of India. So what Mr. Mishra is trying to... Hold on.
If there is a specific officer, Kapil Madan, of the Election Commission who's pressurizing, the state can always take action or not.
Hold on. Now, Swati, hold on. The fact is, you are saying, and Mr. Mishra is saying that no, it is the state government who is interfering and creating pressure.
No, I'm not saying. Mr. Mishra is saying, I'm saying the court is asking the state government to take responsibility.
Allow me to respond.
Go ahead, please.
Allow me to respond. What I'm trying to say here is that I am saying, let's assume anyone who is responsible for this situation, shouldn't that guy be investigated and tried before the court of law?
Absolutely.
This is that's precisely what was argued before the Supreme Court. And
Swati,
what happens is that sometimes the parties directly approach the Supreme Court, which may not be a correct legal procedure.
Okay.
But that does not mean that
it is a serious issue. It is a serious issue. The court is also not saying that it's not concerned that the BLOs are taking their lives, but the court is placing that responsibility on the state government. Mr. Niladri, let me ask you this: will the states take responsibility now? And onus that to reduce work pressure, they'll have to come forward.
Swati, understand the situation where a BLO has committed suicide and he has named the CEC to be responsible for his suicide. Assuming, going by the Supreme Court verdict, if the law and order is a state subject and the state registers an FIR against Ganesh Kumar, can you understand what the situation would be? This is a clear attack on the federal structure of the Constitution. We can't do that. You have to find a midway out of it.
But I think you can still continue your arguments, because, like you said, the case is far from over. The hearing continues, and let's see how the state governments respond on this. For the moment, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us in the broadcast. And with that, we're slipping into a very short break. There's a lot more lined up on the other side. Stay on with us.